What's good here, YouTube? It's your boy Jersey here, and as you can see, we're doing a tier list today. And as you guys know, I play a lot of Pokemon, so I decided to do a mainline Pokemon tier list. Now, the only Pokemon games I haven't played that'll be on this tier list will be the GameCube games. I don't feel qualified enough to give a ranking on them. I've put maybe 5 hours in the Gale of Darkness, and that is about it. But every single other game I've played, or at least a majority of it, to be able to give a ranking of it. So those will be the only two I will not be ranking. However, I'm also just going to be ranking the games together, and it's also going to have the third line games, for example, like Platinum, Emerald, and stuff like that. So let us get right into the tier list. With that being said, subscribe if you're new, turn on the bell for notifications, do not miss a single upload, and leave a like if you do enjoy. And let's get right into the tier list, baby. All right, let's get right into the tier list. We're just gonna go on how the tier list is. I was gonna do it by gen, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do it based on how the tier list is. So that means we're starting off with Gen 4, Diamond and Pearl specifically. And of course, as a Gen 4 baby, I hold these games to a higher standard. So I kind of had to go back and look at Gen 4 as a tier list if I have to say. And in my opinion, I started with I started with Diamond, and I'll be honest, I have it at a B tier. I think that the game, great. Story, great. Cyrus, beautiful. Literally everything in the game is really, really good. I'll say that a couple things hold it back, and it's that abysmal Dex, and that is the sole reason why I don't have it at an A and I don't have it at an S. I think if its Dex was just any tad bit better, it would be at least an A. But its Dex is just awful. If I'm gonna be honest, it's awful. I genuinely love every single little bit of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, but its Dex is so bad, I have to put it in B. Now, the next game, Platinum, dropped specifically to fix that Dex issue, and that game goes right in S tier. I will not argue with anyone ever. Pokemon Platinum version is the greatest Pokemon game to ever exist. I don't care if you call it nostalgia. That game was elite and perfect in every single way possible. Next up, and you can argue with me in the comment section on that one. Next up is Heart Gold. Currently doing a Nuzlocke of Heart Gold. Heart Gold is a great game. I genuinely think it has one flaw. I'm gonna put it at A. I know you Gen 2 fans are loving the fact that I put it at A, but the reason why I put it at an A and not an S is simply because I think that the level curve is just very, very odd. It basically sits at 35 for 4 gyms. I think Morty's gym is like, I want to say level 30, could be 30, maybe 25. I don't really remember. I think his Gengar is level 30, but everything else is like level 25. And then you go and fight. The fighting gym leader, also like level 35. Then you go and fight the steel gym leader, also like level 35. And then you go fight the ice gym leader, also level 35. And then it jumps up to like 45 at Claire. It's like, okay. It's very weird, but I understand the thought process. It's because you really can fight. I mean, technically, it's kind of like a Sabrina Koga situation where you really fight them in any order, so they want to make it to where it's very doable, but you really can't because you have to do the lighthouse quest. But I think you can also return after getting the secret potion and not fight that gym, but you get fly if you beat that gym, so it's kind of pointless to not fight it. So I don't know. That's the only reason why it's not S tier, is specifically that one flaw. I mean, it's not a perfect game like Pokemon Platinum or anything. So I don't think I could nudge it into S tier. Next up, Pokemon Black. I'm be honest, Pokemon Black 1. This could be a hot take. I don't think it was a really great game. I don't think that I think it was hard carried by like Volcarona, the villain team, being very, very good and stuff like that. I didn't personally like Black 1. I would say D tier. I felt like Black 1 and White 1 were just missing something. I could just be wrong, but it definitely felt like it was missing something to me personally. Like, yeah, Reshiram and Zekrom were cool, but also I felt like even in the story they kind of alluded to Kiram's presence and stuff like that. It just kind of made it feel like it was missing something. Now, Black 2 and White 2, elite. Those games, exactly what White 1 and Black 1 were missing. I think that those games did everything almost really perfectly. Of course, still the villain team was elite, but now Kiram existed, and that just made the story just feel so much more fleshed out and so much more put together. And it didn't feel like it was holding back. I felt like a lot of other game communities have this problem. Like, for example, I would say like Watch Dogs Legion and stuff like that, where games feel almost rushed. Or Cyberpunk, great example, Cyberpunk, where games feel really, really rushed. Felt like they just wanted to poop out a game, and they knew they could sell it with Black 1 and White 2, but then Black 2 and White 2 came around, and it was beautiful. The only reason why it's not S tier, the starters suck. God, I hate sniping. Tepig is the most obnoxious thing. Should have been a dark type. It's the most obnoxious thing I've ever seen in my life. The only one that's redeemable is Oshawott. And God, I hate Samurai. He looks cool, but man, they did Oshawott dirty. Now, I may have an unpopular opinion here. I know that a lot of people have a complaint about Pokemon X and Y, saying that Pokemon X and Y is too easy of a game, this, and that. I'm gonna put it at S tier. Personally speaking, I think that out of all the 3DS games, it's definitely the best, bar maybe Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon negging it just a tad bit. I think Pokemon X and Y's story was like easily top tier. Honestly, it has probably a better story than Platinum. Do not quote me for saying that, because you will never hear it again. But in terms of its easiness factor, that just goes with the 3DS Perma XP share kind of is busted, not gonna lie. However, I don't feel like it being easy is a knock on it. I feel like they made a mistake. Once Karina used her Mega Lucario, every single gym leader after that should have had a Mega Pokemon. They didn't. Biggest flaw, I think, in Pokemon history was that one right there. They definitely should have all had Megas. Now, besides that, I think it's elite. I mean, it's Evil Team, or really wasn't even really an evil team per se. It was more just Lysander, but Lysander is like one of the coolest villains, bar Cyrus, and I'm blanking on the name of the villain, but it's Team Galactic and Black 2 and White 2. He's like third. He's like right there. He's right there. But I just think that the story was it was really unique in my opinion. And I think Megas were both the stupidest and the coolest gimmick, because it was like they gave it to Pokemon that were already good, like Charizard, but then they also gave a Mega to Abomasnow, which is not that good of a Pokemon. So it was like, oh well. But I think Pokemon X and Y were great games. Could be because I partially love Yveltal. Xerneas could go die in a hole, but that's besides the point. Stop ruining my ladder games, Xerneas, with your freaking Geomancy. Now, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I'm gonna be honest, I think Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were really good games. Especially with the Delta episode. I don't think, I'm gonna be honest, this might be a hot take. I think that while Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were better than the Ruby version, I think that the Emerald version is just a tad bit better. I know it plays like the Emerald version, like you can go through both hideouts if I'm remembering correctly, because it's been a while since I've done a Nuzlocke of Omega Ruby. If I'm wrong, I'll post text. And stuff like that. Megas are always pretty cool, and this game added a lot more megas and stuff like that, to like Lopunny and a bunch of random Pokemon, and Gardevoir and Gallade, which still ruin my Gen 7 freaking ladder games, but oh well. Yeah, I have a lot of animosity towards certain megas, if you can't tell. But I just think that it does do it is better than the Gen 3 Ruby and Sapphire version, but I don't think it's better than Emerald, if I'm being honest. I think it's like right. I think it's right. It has the same. I have the same opinion for a different reason for these two being right here. Now, Pokemon Sun. I have it in C tier. I feel the same way about. You know what? I'm actually gonna move it down. I have the same feeling when it comes to Black One and White One with this game. I feel like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon should have been the game that came out on launch. I feel like it just didn't feel fleshed out. I could be wrong, but it didn't feel fleshed out to me. I felt like the storyline with the Ultra Beast just kind of didn't have a super climax, if I want to say. Like the super climax of freaking X and Y was, you know, if something happens to go wrong, you know, Yveltal could literally suck the life of a 10-mile radius. Like, it's kind of dark. And the weapon and all that, and Platinum, Giratina, literally Giratina. And we don't talk about that. That game does not have a closure, but oh well. Neither does any of the gen before Gen 3. They didn't have, so there was no such thing as closure. But with Black 2 and White 2, of course it had a really good close, in my opinion. Probably one of the best. Well, no, I think X and Y beats it slightly. But I didn't feel like it just didn't have really that great of closure, to be honest. And in terms of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I don't know. Call me an old head. I don't really like this game. I know that a lot of people, whenever I was talking about Pokemon games on like my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/VipersDrizzy, a lot of people either had really, really high opinions of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, or really, really low ones. And I was like, I'm like kind of in the middle. I love the starters. All three of them are amazing for once. But I don't really like Team Skull. I feel like they're the worst villain team to ever exist. As you can tell by the ranking systems, I like my dramatic teams, except for Team Rocket. Don't really like Team Rocket. Now, Jesse and James, I do like that part of Team Rocket. But other than that, I don't really like it. However, I think what really kind of sold me on the game really was the story aspect. It was the starters and the story aspect. The villain team, not so much. Z Crystals, absolutely not. So basically, it's kind of got this dead weight. If it was just no Z Crystals and Team Skull didn't exist, it'd probably be honestly right here. But with the Z Crystals and Team Skull, I kind of have to drop it down to C. You guys understand? Then you guys are great. But I just genuinely did not feel like it was that great of a game. I don't think it's terrible. I think its story is amazing. But I think its gameplay and other things are just not very good. Well, its gameplay and its villain teams were not very good. I hate this game. And I'm gonna be honest, there's a specific reason why, and you can call me biased. I suck at Pokemon Go. So when it came to catching Pokemon in this game, I was not the greatest, and I did not like it. So we'll move on. Everything else about the game is just generic Kanto BS. So I don't really have an opinion because Kanto is not that good of a region. Next up, Pokemon Red and Blue. I have a hot take. I'm not putting this in S tier. I don't think it deserves S tier. I was not a Gen 1 baby, so I got to play these games for the first time when I got to play them. And I put them in C tier because out of respect, I won't put them anything lower than C tier. I just feel like Kanto's not that great of a region. There's really no story. It's kind of just catch Pokemon, fight things. There's no story. It's obviously the first game, so there's not gonna be a story. However, I don't think it deserves anything higher than a C, and I don't think it deserves anything lower than a C. I think it's very, very mid. The things that do propel it a little higher is the fact that its legendaries are great, except for the legendary birds, because we don't like them. With the exception of Articuno. Mewtwo is great. Mew is uncatchable in those games, but still great. And then other things like the starters, iconic, and there's a bunch of other Pokemon that are really good, but also another thing I gotta knock it down for is the fact that there's literally a type of the game that's unfreaking beatable, and it's Psychic. Because specifically in Gen 1, there was a bug that made it to where Ghost wasn't even super effective. It was either resisted or immune, meaning that you literally couldn't hit them for super effective damage besides bug type, and bug type was abysmal till Gen 4. So with that, I'm just gonna put it right there because Sabrina is literally a menace because half the Pokemon in the freaking region are poison types. Next up, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I put an ungodly amount of hours in this game. An ungodly amount of hours in this game. I will, you know what, just for shits and giggles, I will show you guys how many hours I put into that game. It's disgusting. So I feel like I'm the most qualified person to even remotely speak on Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I'm gonna put it at B tier, specifically to piss off the old heads. I think that red and blue deserve S tier. Now, I think that Pokemon Sword and Shield was a great game. No, I think it was a good game. I don't think it was mid. I think it was good. Its Darkest Day storyline was kind of abrupt, but it was still, it was beautiful. Its dramatic close was beautiful with Eternatus or Eternatus, however you want to say it. Beautiful. Loved it. Even in the animated short or the animated thing for, I think it's Pokemon Journeys, I can't remember where it was animated, still stellar. I really have one flaw, and it's the rival. Now, I forgot to mention it because he kind of escaped my memory. But now that I'm remembering about the Pokemon Sword and Shield one, I also need a note on it. Another reason why I didn't like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Hop. That's all I gotta say. I don't like overly friendly rival. I don't have a problem with overly friendly rivals. You just need to have that dick. You know, like... Pause. You just need to have that one rival that's an absolute asshole. And Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon really didn't have... I mean, they kind of did with the one Team Skull guy that I'm blanking on his name. The one whose ace of the Pokemon was a Silvally. And you could argue Pokemon Sword and Shield had it with BD, but I don't like BD either, so I'll be honest. I mean, the game did... the Pokemon Sword and Shield, I think, has one of the coolest features when it comes to max raids. And I feel like its online-ness is so much better than any of the other Pokemon games could even remotely ask for. I think that it's a couple of major flaws. All three of the starters are kind of mid, with the exception of Cinderace when he has his hidden ability. They're all not very... I mean, they're very good and competitive, but they suck design-wise, if I'm gonna be honest. Also, I feel like they should have just dropped the game with the DLC Pokemon added to the Pokedex. They could have added the DLC legendaries later, but I digress. Let's move on to the next game. The literal worst Pokemon game ever developed. I don't even know why they dropped it. They should have done a full-fledged out remake. Instead, they went for a chibi version. I'm not gonna be that guy that says I hated Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. However, it was quite literally one of the most boring video games I've ever played. and I've watched someone play Watch Dogs Legion. So, with that being said, I don't really have much more to say about it. It was just not good. I mean, I like chibi games. I'm fine. I was perfectly fine with it being chibi. It didn't have the same essence that Pokemon Pearl and Diamond had. I just don't know how they didn't give it that same essence, but somehow it doesn't. Now, the E4 being competitive ready was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie, it was hilarious and very interesting. And it also would make Nuzlocke in that game a pain. But good thing I'm not Nuzlocke in that game. But I just don't know, man. It's just not good. It's so boring. Now, Pokemon Legends Arceus, oh my god, is the greatest Pokemon game not named Pokemon Platinum to ever exist. It broke the code. An open world Pokemon game that actually doesn't look like dog shit? Pokemon Sword and Shield? Take notes, man. You could have been here. But no, you wanted to be terrible. Pokemon Legends Arceus was one of the greatest games. I literally could not stop playing it from friggin' start to finish. Another thing that the only complaint that anyone ever had was shiny hunters saying that the shiny odds were too high. Now, I'm sorry, do you want to spend 800 hours a day running around in circles on a bike trying to hatch eggs for the Masuda method? That was a little harsh. Trust me, I'll still do it either way. But I did like that the shiny odds were just a little bit higher, because it definitely does allow you to get better, or it allows you to at least experience getting a shiny, because I know a lot of people haven't. And once you're hooked on getting one shiny, you really cannot stop. Hashtag I might shiny dex Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Who knows? Quote me on it, but I might. Next up, Pokemon Yellow. I genuinely despised this game as a kid. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have much more to say about it. I didn't like Ash. If you guys don't know, I have a condition, I want to call it, to where I just don't like main characters. So when I got to play a game as the main character, I didn't really like it. So I'm just gonna move on, because that's just my own personal bias. If there's any Pokemon Yellow fans, you don't really exist. So let's just move on to Gold and Silver. Gold and Silver, I feel the same way as Red and Blue. I think they are a tad bit better than Red and Blue, of course, but that's besides the point. I think that in terms of, and actually no, I'm gonna move them up to B, because I definitely think they're a lot better than Red and Blue. I think that the fact that the end game allows you to go through Kanto and just re-explore and stuff like that is just mwah, mwah. Also, Ho and Lugia, great legendaries, wonderful legendaries. The starters are like one of the few things that hold this game back, with the only one being somewhat decent as being Totodile. Cyndaquil, Typhlosion, you can argue. I don't even realistically want to hear you out, because it doesn't really, because I mean, one of the only gyms it's really good for in the actual Johto playthrough is Ice, when like 90% of the ice types in the game are water ice, so it doesn't really help you out at all. But I digress. The game was okay. Next up, I'm gonna put Crystal on the same tier, and I know that hurts Suicune fans, but like I told to the Pokemon Yellow fans, do you really exist? Because I think the only reason that's holding this game back from moving up to A tier, because it basically is almost the exact same game with a few minor differences, like getting a Dratini after answering the questions behind Claire's dungeon, behind Claire's gym, is just Suicune. I honestly don't like Suicune. In my personal opinion, I think it would be a C tier game, just because Suicune's on the cover. But I'm gonna leave it at B, because, like I said, I think it's better than Red and Blue. Now, if it was Entei or Raikou, easily A. But it's not. It's Suicune. I don't understand it. Entei is like literally the leader of the group. So why did Suicune get the spotlight? But oh well. Next up, Ruby. Like I previously mentioned, I think Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire did the Ruby and Sapphire version a lot better. There's not too much to say. The starters, one of the best starter trios. The region is water everywhere. The story, obviously immaculate. I just think that in terms of, I guess because I didn't start with this game as a kid, I just don't really have any attachment to it. So I think it's a very, I don't want to say mid, because mid's like very harmful, but I don't think it really deserves C tier, but also I don't really know where else to put it, because I don't think Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are an A tier game. And let's just move on. Pokemon Coliseum, didn't play it. I wanted it so bad. Didn't play it at all. Next up would be Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. To be honest, I think Fire Red and Leaf Green, there could be my own personal bias. Specifically because this is the game I think I've Nuzlocked the single most out of any Pokemon game ever, because for some reason it's easy to, it's just my comfort Nuzlocke. I think it's either A or B. Probably B if I'm gonna be safe. Because I don't think it's an A tier game. I think the only reason why I'm gonna put it in A tier is because of my own personal biases. But I feel like the game is just better fire. It's just better red and better blue. It just does everything better. In my opinion, the stars are cooler. The types actually make a little bit of sense now. Normal, they're still type specific, but also, you know, Ghost can actually hit Psychic for damage. Not that the only Ghost type in the game is a special attacker, and Ghost in that game is physical, which I will save my complaints about that for another video. But I just think it's red but better. Next up, Emerald. The easiest A tier to S tier game of all time. What do I want to do? I think I'm gonna put it in S tier. I'm gonna move this up to A, and that looks better to me. Emerald, probably one of the best Pokemon games, especially if you're a new Pokemon fan and you want to get into some old games. Easily one of the best Pokemon games to play. The fact that you can go through every single team hideout, it doesn't feel too easy, but it also doesn't feel too hard. And of course, the poster boy, Ray freaking Quaza, man. Rayquaza is like legendary 101, man. I don't think a legendary reveal can get cooler than Rayquaza and Giratina, in my opinion. I feel like every other legendary has tried and has never succeeded to come close to the reveal of those two specifically. I feel like it goes Rayquaza, Giratina, and then probably what's another go? The Omega Ruby versions of Kyogre and Groudon. I don't think any of the legendary comes remotely close. You could argue Dialga and Palkia and in those games, maybe Arceus in Pokemon Legends Arceus, but I wasn't really counting that one. If I was, it probably would be like number one, because that whole freaking fight was a movie. But I digress. I think that Pokemon Emerald is just beautiful. In terms of the Game Boy games, this is easily the best one. And honestly, I like this because it has the best one for every single console, this being Game Boy, this being 3DS, this being the Switch, and this being the DS. I feel like it encapsulates everything perfectly. These are all the perfect games for their specific consoles, in my personal opinion. Now, Gale of Darkness, I did have a lot of fun playing Gale of Darkness. However, I don't think I played it enough to rank it. Shadow Pokemon aspect, amazing. Now, next up we have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Right now, off of what I know, I'm gonna put it in A tier. I think that it's gonna end up probably being an S tier. I feel like they learned a lot from Pokemon Legends Arceus about how they should make games. However, I feel like the regional variants and stuff like that are gonna be a little funky. And also the time warping things are gonna be kind of cool. I want to see how it plays out, but right now, just based off of trailers, just based off of hype, just based off of everything, I have it at an A tier. The only reason why I don't have it at an S tier is because I have a bad feeling like they're gonna give us the legendaries really, really early. I said that in one of my other videos. If they don't, it very well could move up to S tier. But with that being said, guys, this is my tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you would like to make any swaps or changes, or like to combat me on any of my game rankings, I'll be in the comments section listening and looking at comments. With that being said, I'm out. Peace out.